Welcome back to another powerful video designed to boost your productivity. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey was first published in 1989, and since then, it has transformed millions of lives worldwide. With over 40 million copies sold and translated into 50+ languages, this book has helped people from all walks of life become more effective in their personal and professional journeys. Get ready to learn the habits that separate highly effective people from the rest. Let's dive in. Habit number 1, be proactive. I remember when I was younger, my uncle used to tell us about the good old days when you could buy a whole meal for just a few dollars. He'd go on and on about how everything used to be so cheap, like the whole world was in a permanent sale. But now, well, prices are climbing like they're in some kind of race, and it seems like they're winning every time. And every time I hear someone complain, it always seems to come down to one thing: the government. If only those clueless politicians knew how to handle things, they'd grumble. Prices used to be so low. Now look at them. Now I gotta say, I've heard these complaints for hours, and let me tell you, it's not just a one-time thing. It's like clockwork, complaining about things they can't change, blaming everyone else, all day long. And this right here is what reactive people do. They focus on all the things that are completely out of their control. They tell themselves, it's not possible that inflation is real. Or if it's real, why don't they teach us about it? And you know what? Sometimes I get it. It's easy to fall into that trap. But here's the kicker. All that complaining doesn't get you anywhere. Now, on the flip side, you have proactive people. These are the folks who understand that no matter how true their complaints are, it's not going to fix anything. So, instead of blaming the government, they're asking themselves, what can I control? If you own a business and things aren't going great, instead of moaning about how people these days don't appreciate quality anymore, or how bad the government's regulations are, a proactive person is asking, how can I make my product so amazing that my customers can't live without it? Think about that for a second. How much responsibility does that take? How much dedication? How much work is required just to come up with that one question? And guess what? Most of us don't want to put in that kind of effort. Our brains are designed to take the easy route, to minimize the work. So, what do? We complain because it's easier. That's exactly why most people focus on things they can't control. It's a whole lot easier to point fingers than to look inward and ask ourselves the hard questions. But here's the truth. If you want to level up in life, you've got to shift your focus to what you can control. That's the game changer. Habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. Picture this. You're at a family reunion and everyone's gathered around, sharing memories. But then the topic shifts and suddenly it's about you. You're sitting there listening to them talk about your life, what you did, how you lived, and the choices you made. What do they say about you? What will people remember when your name comes up in conversation? This is one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself. It forces you to take a hard look at the life you're living and whether it's in line with the legacy you want to leave behind. Are you doing the things that will make people say they really lived life to the fullest? Are you actively pursuing your goals, building the life you want? Or are you just going through the motions, letting time pass by without a sense of direction? Let's dive a little deeper. Do you want to be remembered as someone who was kind, compassionate, and present for the people who needed you most? If that's your goal, how are you showing up today? Are you giving your time to the people who matter most to you? Or are you letting distractions and busyness get in the way? Do you want to be known as someone who faced challenges head-on, never backed down from adversity, and learned from every obstacle along the way? If that's the case, then are you taking action now? Or are you avoiding hard situations because they're uncomfortable? The reality is, we all have to face this question at some point. And when we do, we'll realize just how much we need to shift our focus and take responsibility for the life we're creating. Proactivity isn't about waiting for the perfect moment or the right opportunity. It's about making decisions and taking action today, in the present, to build the future we want. The more we take charge of our actions, the more we shape the legacy we leave behind. Habit number 3, put first things first. Let me ask you something. What are the most important things to you in life? I'm talking about the things that truly matter, the ones you'd put at the top of your list if you had to prioritize. Please make a list hereafter, and you will see how much this will help. Most people would say things like their well-being, their relationships, family, spouse, children. These are the things that give our lives meaning, right? Now, think about it. If I were to ask you what you wanted your legacy to be, what would you say? You'd never say something like, I want to be remembered for how well I organize my papers, or I want people to know I watched every episode of that show. It just doesn't make sense. And yet, how many of us actually spend more time on organizing papers or sitting in front of the TV than we do on things that truly matter? It's a huge disconnect, isn't it? We say that family, health, and relationships are our top priorities, but when we look at how we spend our time, it often doesn't line up. We're stuck in routines that don't align with our goals, focusing on the things that don't really move the needle in our lives. The key here is intentionality. If we're serious about what matters most, we need to plan our days, set our priorities, and make sure the things we're spending time on align with our bigger vision. We should ask ourselves, am I spending time on what truly matters? Or am I getting lost in distractions? By beginning with the end in mind, we take control of our time, and we start living our lives with purpose, ensuring that every action we take brings us closer to the legacy we want to leave behind. Habit number 4, think win-win. Imagine this. You and I are both musicians. We create songs that inspire people, and we each have a loyal fan base of about 100,000 listeners. One day, I hear your song, and I absolutely love it. I'm so inspired that I share it with my audience, telling them how incredible your music is. As a result, thousands of my listeners start streaming your songs, buying your albums, and following your journey. Now, you notice the surge in new listeners and think, who is this artist? Let me check out his music. You listen to my songs and realize that I also have something valuable to offer. So, you share my work with your audience, and suddenly, I have thousands of new listeners discovering my sound. See the difference here? This is collaboration. This is growth. This is how real success works. Now, contrast that with another approach. Imagine I hear your song, and instead of appreciating your talent, I feel threatened. So I go online, create a fake account, and leave a negative review, hoping to turn people away from your music, so they'll listen to mine instead. Sounds petty, right? But this is exactly what many people do in life and business. They waste time trying to tear others down, thinking it will somehow lift them up. But real growth doesn't come from sabotaging others. It comes from creating, sharing, and adding value. Let me share a personal story. Way back in 2018, there was a guy around town, and we both had restaurants. One day, I visited his place and tried his food. It was amazing. I couldn't help but share it with everyone, posting about it online. On the second visit, I met him and let him know about it. A few days later, he came by my restaurant, tasted my dishes, and loved them too. He shared his experience with his followers, and soon, I saw a boost in customers. When we support each other, we both win. When we waste energy trying to outshine or undermine others, we only limit ourselves. So, put your focus where it truly matters, building, growing, and lifting others up. So, stop treating life as a zero-sum game. Your success does not require my failure, and mine does not require yours. Instead, let's focus on adding value, building partnerships, and creating a future where we both thrive. Because in the long run, success isn't about how many people you beat. It's about how many people you help rise with you. Habit number 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. If you ever find yourself in a conversation and you want to prove a point or get your own thoughts across, it's easy to fall into the trap of simply waiting for your turn to speak. You're not really hearing the other person. Instead, you're just focused on your next line. I've done it too, thinking about my response while the other person is talking, and I'm sure you have as well. In the end, neither of us actually understands each other. Now picture this instead. You're telling me something important, something personal, or a big idea you're passionate about. Rather than interrupting or jumping in with my thoughts right away, I take the time to listen closely. I ask questions to truly grasp what you're saying and understand where you're coming from. Only then do I offer my response. When that happens, what changes? You feel heard and respected, and you're more likely to listen when it's my turn to speak. We don't just talk at each other, we truly connect. That's the essence of seek first to understand, then to be understood. Whether in friendships, at work, or in personal relationships, real communication is about more than just waiting for your moment to speak. It's about actively listening to understand. When you get this habit down, people trust you more, your conversations are more meaningful, and even conflicts are easier to navigate. So next time you're having a conversation, remember, don't just wait for your turn. Seek first to understand. The results will transform your relationships and make every interaction that much richer. Habit number 6, synergize. This habit is something I try to apply every day with every interaction and every comment I respond to. Now, imagine two neighbors with a tall fence between them. On one side, there's a mango tree heavy with ripe fruit. The person on that side can reach some of the mangoes, but not the best ones at the top. On the other side, the neighbor has no tree, but he has a long ladder. Instead of struggling alone, the first neighbor calls over the second one. "Hey, I've got delicious mangoes, but I can't reach the best ones." The second neighbor smiles and says, "And I've got a ladder, but no tree." So they work together. The ladder goes up, and soon they're both enjoying fresh, juicy mangoes. One had the fruit, the other had the tool, but only by combining their efforts did they get the best outcome. That's synergy. Instead of working alone, find ways to collaborate. When you bring your strengths together with others, you don't just add, you multiply results. This is synergy, where both people contribute to something greater than what each could accomplish alone. By listening and understanding the other person's point of view, you open up opportunities for collaboration that you might not have otherwise seen. While synergy doesn't always happen with everyone, you should always strive to create those moments where understanding each other leads to something better than you could achieve individually. By seeking to understand first, you lay the foundation for greater cooperation and success in any interaction. With synergy, you can gather so much more than you could on your own. Habit number 7, sharpen the saw. Imagine a man struggling to chop down a tree for hours with a dull saw. His neighbor, who's been watching from his porch, finally walks over and says, "You know, if you sharpen the saw, it'll make the job much easier and faster." The man looks at him and responds, "But sharpening the saw will take too much time." We might laugh at this, but let's be honest, we do the same thing all the time. We skip the fundamentals and complain that things aren't working. We can't seem to find 30 minutes a day for times a week to hit the gym because, well, it feels like a big commitment. Our health declines to the point where we're no longer able to be effective in other areas of life. We can't seem to read for just 15 minutes a day to stimulate our minds because it takes too much time, but then we wonder why we're feeling sluggish, mentally drained, and unproductive. It's like asking an engineer, forget about the foundation of the building. Can you find us some magic bricks that will float in midair? The reality is sharpening the saw, the basics of health, knowledge, and self-care takes time, yes, but it also makes everything else more efficient. By investing in these fundamental habits, you're preparing yourself for much greater results in the long run. Skipping them may seem like it saves time, but in the end, you're only making things harder. When you take the time to sharpen your skills, body, and mind, you're setting yourself up to succeed faster and more effectively. Those are the 7 habits of highly effective people, are key to living a life of purpose, balance, and success. They help you shift from reactive to proactive, prioritize what truly matters, build strong relationships, and continuously grow. Apply these habits daily, and watch as you transform into a more effective and fulfilled version of yourself. If you want to take your personal growth even further, don't forget to subscribe to and become a tiny bit wiser. Thank you for watching.